welcome back to the Talent Whisperer. It's your host, Chipochedu Piri. Today I have I know I keep saying I have a super special guest, but I really do have a special guest because we're talking to Cassandra Mhone, aka Cassie.
Yes, please.
Yeah, she says you call her Cassie when she has her... Now you always have short hair. I used to say, call me Cassie when I have short hair, and then Cassandra when I have like a long wave.
So good luck to when next you're going to have to call me Cassandra.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a long wave in years. Anyway, Cassie is a commercial leader. She has a wealth of experience in sales strategy, in building teams, in brand management, and this is the marketing campaigns queen. Yes. Oh, I love how you just say yes. You just agreed, like, yes. I know Cassie as a friend.
Yeah.
She's like my life partner, my accountability partner. Yeah. She's like my motivator whenever I'm like super low. You're the first call I make. Aww. And also just like some people might get offended with this, you know, but you're my soulmate. Overall soulmate. Yeah. Welcome, Cassie, to the Talent Whisperer.
Thank you. I'd waited for this call. I wasn't going to push you, but I was like, 1, 2, when is my chance? And I'm grateful that I get to do this with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. I think it was going to be the other way around, where you were going to have a TV show and interview me.
And I had pictured what I would make you wear.
What would make
the script? What would make me wear? I'd pictured all of that, but I'm happy it's like this. I'm happy it's this sort of time, it's this sort of season. So yeah,
I'm pretty excited. So anyway, to get to know anyone, we have to go way back. So could you tell us what you were like as a kid? What were you like as a kid? What did you get in trouble for? What did you get praised for? What was young Cassie like? And were you always called Cassie? What were you called?
No, I was called Cassandra.
Cassandra,
so funny thing is I got my name Cassandra a little bit later. And at home I was called mainly Ndelela, which is the name that my mother gave me. Okay. A whole lot of history there. I think parts of it you know.
Yeah.
But when I remember who I was when I was younger, it's pretty much who I am now. So there's a piece in the middle that evolved and changed and got lost. But I think who I am today is who I was always meant to be. Never afraid of platform, ready to speak up. If you accidentally ask a question in my presence, I will give my 2 cents, no matter how clueless I am. Always being brave. Taking a bet on myself was always the one. I was always putting like, teacher me, did you ask? Yeah. Even if I didn't understand the question, instead of answering the question the teacher has asked, I will ask them a question just so I can be the first person to speak. And I see parts of that still with me today. What I got in trouble for is almost the same thing that I got praised for. So from my mom and my dad's side, it was always that I was willing to speak up, that I had gifting and talents that weren't always academic. I think my parents never stressed me on academia. I think they were sure that I would be fine. It was swimming, dancing, it was all of those things. And as you know, when they passed, those are the very same things I got condemned for. So it was a little bit confusing. But I'm happy with, I'm at peace and happy and very proud of who I am right now.
Oh, I love that. Let's talk about, you use a really good word, platform, because when you say platform, it reminds me of, you know, when we just became friends. We're colleagues first, but then we became friends. And our favorite thing was hosting.
Yes.
We used to call ourselves MC Extraordinaires. And both of us enjoyed a stage and enjoyed a platform. So you use the word like platform when you were young. What exactly did that look like? Did it look like you performing for the adults?
Yes,
it was. Going to get Htenge, and did it look like you reciting plays? How did platform look like then?
Okay, so my first formal experience of platform was when I was in grade 1, 1991, and I had to give a poem at Youth Day. It was on vandalism. I was so scared in that moment. And then I looked around the crowd and it looked like everybody was ready to listen to me. And then I realized in that moment that, oh, it's me, it's my time. And I gave my poem and there was applause and all of that. But before that, really, platform was the chest of drawers and me modeling across the chest of drawers and changing clothes, presenting to my cousins, speaking poems. It was being ready to answer a question that had been asked. it was that, and it was enough then, eh?
Yeah.
It was really okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I tell people that I do not remember a time when I was shy.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, there's like, oh, I'm afraid to speak. It was never that. Now I think about, am I packaging my content for the audience appropriately? Am I giving myself an opportunity to be heard again? Because you can misuse an opportunity to speak and never just get audience again. Okay. But back then it was just like, yeah, my time.
Well, you were a kid, so it was happy-go-lucky. I'm going to digress a little bit.
Yeah.
You say now you're packaged a lot more. Is that always a positive thing where you kind of grow up? Because when you're a kid, you're asking questions, you're expressing yourself, and there's all this like creative outlet. But now when you grow up and you find yourself like packaging and thinking about my audience and appropriateness and like, and yes, in like you should have some kind of responsibility or ethics when you do have a platform. But do you think we also get to a point where we package too much or we overthink what we share on platforms?
It's true. I do think that sometimes we package. Well, I think a lot of times we package. And the inner me always asks myself, why did I package? So whenever I have an opportunity to speak, I always aim to honor the audience. So I believe I have always had leadership qualities. Some of the times I was in trouble when I was a kid is because I led a revolt, right? So I've always known that innately. Yes, we didn't want a certain teacher who they gave us. I don't know why we thought we could decide on that matter, but I was like, leading the chants and the what in grade 5. Now I can't remember if my parents even knew about that. Anyway, so even now I package. It's two ways for me, Chipo. I package to ensure that the message gets across, and because it's part of my job, communicating is such a large part of my job.
That's a big part of your job.
I have to be able to sell a vision, demonstrate that this vision is noble enough, it's worthy of your time and your effort, and that at the end there's rewards for everyone. So that's a large part of my job. So I'm very conscious and cautious of how I do that, still honoring my audience. But there are other times when the packaging is because of maybe feedback I've received in the past where some people have said, you're too loud. And there were moments when that threw me off. Like, honestly, I was born with a husky voice. What you're hearing now is even polished. But I could take it an octave. My natural octave is like really low. Like this would be me when I'm talking. You know what I mean? So I have to work with audibility and what. And some of that has been tempered by trying to be appropriate for some people. I think earlier on, it was really to fit a mode. It was very hard because I didn't know what that mode was. Most of the time, it didn't feel like my brand of boldness, courage, adding my voice to a matter, even if you take my opinion, but I would not want to leave a room without my voice at it. And I had to get to a place where through mentorship and coaching and therapy, I had to ask the honest question to say, was I too loud, or were you not ready for me? Did you not prepare for me, an encounter with me? Did I throw you off of your game? Because I'm an intentional person. I'm very reflective. I'm not always right. I'm not always correct, but I'm intentional. So how I showed up is I chose to show up that way. And if it was too much, was it just that you were not ready?
You're not used.
Yes, you're not used. You're not used to a girl like me who is ready to speak, a girl like me who will say, I know or I don't know, but I want to find out. A girl like me will be like, no, you crossed the line there. And there are places where it's been easier to do and places where it's still a work in progress.
I actually have a question about that, but I'm going to ask it later. But for the sake of like just like, you know, trying to flow, so I'm going to take you back to growing up. So, you know, because I'm your friend, I know a little more about you than usual. So I'm going to ask you some questions that kind of go there and some that are a lot more surface. So, you know,
sip some coffee.
Sip some coffee. So, you know, I know you lost your parents when you were young. And as someone who lost their father when they were quite young as well, I can almost empathize. But, you know, I always had my mom. and I know you lost both.
Yeah.
So when, they always say hindsight is a great teacher, right? And you said you're very reflective. So now when you look back, how do you think, or how do you perceive that losing your parents quite young shaped your journey and shaped who you are today?
I never deserved to lose my parents that young. I lost my defense. I saw later on where people who do not deserve to be in the same room as me say, I will not amount to something. And there were times when that sank. And there's a part of my life where I was just trying to work those words out. And how I showed up was, you would tell me I'm great and I wouldn't hear it because someone said I would amount to nothing. Some words were very helpful. I'm glad words don't get to sit on your forehead because I wouldn't be able to walk with some of the things that I've heard being said to me. So losing my parents was the worst experience that could happen. I have conversations with God and I tell him, you are not doing that to my children. Do whatever it wants. Take my limbs. Leave me with the voice to be able to advocate for my kids. Because my parents were not rich. But what I lost was not the money or the resources. It was defense.
Protection.
Protection.
Yeah.
The last time I heard someone say, so between 1997 and 2020, no one said they believe in me. Or no one demonstrated that they believed in me. So you can imagine what I did to try and feel like, oh, I'm something, I mean something, and people believe in me. But what that did, I look at it in two ways. It made me brave. I didn't have a choice. I had to be brave. I had to be bold. I had to be strong. I remember one time I was crying to you and I said, Chipo, I'm tired of always being strong. I've been too strong for so many things, through so many seasons. When will this being strong end? Now coming to today, I know I can be strong. So I'm not doubting the seasons I will go through if I will manage. I will go in and come out. If it's a fire, I know I'll come out without smelling like I've been through a fire. So there's no smoke on me. That's me, right? But then there's also the girl who doesn't know how to ask for help. There's things you found out after the fact. You didn't know I was going through them because I packaged. I then came to tell you about it as a testimony because I don't know how to have people there for me. I don't even know what that's supposed to look like. I'm learning from my relationship with you, from therapy and how I'm relating with my husband, being able to ask for even simple things like, I don't want to cook today, But I didn't know that people could be there for you. I didn't know how to raise the flag and say, friend, I'm not feeling okay. I didn't know how to defend my space because I just never had that opportunity. So it's been a journey. I'm proud of who I am, man. The story, my past, and who I am today, two different things. I'm like the girl from Chifubu.
I always call you that. Every time you have a big win, I'm like, hey, girl from Chifubu.
That's who I am. Somebody will have to look up Chifubu, but all the best.
So from what I've heard from your explanation, I think it's true that you're reflective because your takeaways from your experience of losing your parents young have been both the things that the good things that came out, which is your ability to be brave, to go for it, that survival instinct, that like believing in yourself, as much as like you only heard in 2020 that someone believed in you, you had to have believed in yourself to get to where you were. Because I met you in 2019.
2019, yeah.
So by that time, I think you'd have had to like have some kind of like traction of believing in yourself. So, and then also the downside, and I think sometimes we focus too much on one area. You either just focus on the positive and not know the downside, or sometimes just focus on the downside and not know the positive, because these experiences can have both like negative and positive consequences or repercussions or whatever. But I love that you're so reflective and you're able to tell that, like, you know what, it led me to like being an island and not asking for help. And I think asking for help is one of those very underrated things. A lot of people think that asking for help is easy, but it can be the hardest thing to rely on the people around you, to rely on the people that love you, to even just trust them.
Yes.
Especially when you've been betrayed or violated by the people that you were supposed to trust,
Yes.
you know? So thanks for being honest and for answering that. I know that's never an easy thing. And like, you were just like going through it because you lost your parents. It wasn't easy, you know, and then you became a teen mom. And I imagine, you know, if you are a teen mom without protection, because you brought it up earlier to say what you lost was you lost your protection. Now, if you're, you know, there are people who are not your parents who look after you, and it hasn't been the easiest experience, and then you get pregnant, you know. And I know back in the day, gosh, getting pregnant as a teenager at that time was a lot, because even I knew, as a teen, I could tell the heaviness, the shame, the heaviness, the inconvenience. There was just like a lot. So you just knew in your head that like, ooh, this is the worst thing that can happen to me, right? So once again, you're 18. You're 18, right?
Yes,
if I got
18.
there, yeah. You're 18, you're pregnant, you somehow have to get through this experience. A whole human is at the end of it. And I say a whole human because like I always think of children as like, this is a whole human that, you know, depends on you. And you're not yet in college. You don't really have a plan for what's next. You know, like just tell us about that experience. Like what was that like in the moment? And just like, how did you get through to the other side of it where, I don't know which other side, what the other side looked like, but maybe you can talk about that a little more.
It's funny because I haven't thought about that much. I know one thing that, I don't even know how to put this. I can't say it was hard because I wasn't very thoughtful. In those moments, I wasn't very thoughtful. Also, I would say in the family I grew up, it wasn't very strange for someone to have a child out of wedlock or what. There was there was the way other people would feel shame. I really didn't feel shame that much. The shame wasn't that I am pregnant. The shame was that now I will not be anything. So it was, I'm pregnant, I have had the child, and you have told me that I will not amount to anything. That's it, like my life has stopped here. But I remember being 18 and now I look back and I say that was a bold choice. I chose my son. I chose my son and I chose me. And I said, in my head there was even a Tupac song, it's me against the world. And that's really how I ran. It was just, whatever will come, Arthur and I, it's Arthur and I, you know. And I wasn't taking very big steps, but I was taking a step every day. One thing I don't remember is ever feeling like a victim. I never felt like a victim. Somehow the gift that I was given in that moment is knowing that akakulo mwana. I knew my son would grow. I didn't know who I would be. I didn't know what, but somehow I was sure my son would grow. So even when I was, I left my son with my friend, came to Mhone. That was also another season. And even when I was at school, I didn't play. I didn't play at all. I didn't play. I studied and I passed and I studied and I knew I was doing it for me and Arthur because I was sure. I grew up in an environment where education was important and I knew. But I came at my education with, there's no option. I can't fail. I can't redo this. And I'm doing, and it was everything to me because when I got pregnant and my uncle was told that I was pregnant, the word that I got back, and it wasn't him who said, and I don't know who said it now, I can't remember very clearly, was, well, now you won't be able to go to Unza. So when I got the chance, like 2 years later, to go to Eloquence was my salvation. When I look back at it, I think a few years back, I cried and I mourned the experience because it wasn't fun. But I had to honor what that foundation meant to me. Because immediately after finishing, before I even graduated, I got my first job. It was so funny, but it was my first job, and it was in sales. And from there, I started sending money for my son. It wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't helping, but it was such a fulfillment that I got my son. I'm doing something for my son. So that was quite empowering. I'm grateful for my family because it was hard. There were moments when I felt alone. There was moments where it was quite heavy condemnation. Because of that. I think I did always feel that I've let people down because the narrative really changed before I got pregnant and when I got pregnant. It was almost like all the hopes and dreams that could have been there, like, oh, Cassie will become this or Ndela will become this. They all went, and the narrative really changed. Like, you're probably going to be a high-profile whore, you know, and it did hurt.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've never won victimhood very well. I'm just like, I'm not the first one. And I had reference points in my family, so screwed up as it was.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, man, this is always just like, we talk about these things, but it's always kind of feels new every time we talk about it. And so when did you start dreaming? Like, when did you start, like, because at this point, it's your son, it's you, it's survival, right? And, you know, coincidentally, but I don't believe there's such a thing as coincidence. Your first job is in sales. And right now, you know, you lead a sales function for a global team, you know, like that kind of journey of that humble beginning. At which point did it transition from being survival to becoming a dream?
Okay.
Like, when did you start dreaming that even this that you have right now is possible?
So it's almost the same timeline when I told you earlier to say between the time my dad died and around 2020, there was nothing about dreams. There was just pay the bills, feed. It was just survival, like you've put it. And how did I get to start dreaming again? It was therapy. And you've known that journey, but it was getting into a room with someone, unpacking my past, coming to the realization that my dreams never died. They were just packed. But true to what God's word says, when it is how it is written to say, the vision may tarry, but it will never lie. It never lied. So I kept on moving, and it wasn't really that I was chasing a dream, I was chasing survival. But having gone through therapy, repackaging my story, arriving at my truth, walking back to Ndelela, the way I was, the bold, the brave, the enthusiastic, the passionate, and now actively working on realizing that dream. So having to unearth a lot of things. And shout out to my therapist. I don't know what now would look like without that experience, which is a journey I choose to continue walking.
Yeah.
But also shout out to God. There's been truths for me. There are truths for me in the words or in the Bible. And sometimes I laugh in my quiet moments and I'm like, God, if you don't stop me, I'm going to take your word literally until you come back. So like when the
like, you need to calm me down.
You need to bring me back and say,
because me,
Cassie,
whatever you said is
so
like
says,
facts. You know?
Like, can the dry bones live?
Yeah.
I took on a personal project to say, my dry bones. Which ones are my dry bones? And they have to live. And rewriting that and walking it. And just knowing that there's room at big tables for me. And being intentional to say, give me a table. It can be this small. I will occupy it. I will honor it. I will honor that opportunity and the person who's given. And can I get a bigger table? Yes, you can. Get the big table. Do the right thing. Don't destroy the table for anybody else. And move on. So I can see I'm in a place where my dreams are coming true.
Love that. So speaking of big tables, let's talk about your awesomeness, your awesome sauce. A common thread, and I think this is one of my favorite things about our friendship, is just like how we constantly hype ourselves and each other up. Like the safe space of just being like, yeah, Like I'm the,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm the one. And like the freedom of saying
Yes.
that. But I love that over time it's become part of speech, because when I heard you today, all I was thinking of like, wow, this is like, we talk different. Like from
Yes.
hiding your awesomeness and being a bit apologetic about it
Yeah.
to just like, hi, here's the mic. Welcome to Talent Whisperer. Hi, I'm awesome. Was like the first thing you said, and I love it so much. But like, let's talk about that. I want to dissect that, because as you know, like this is a podcast where we discuss talents and
Yeah.
gifts. Like when you look inside and you break down your awesomeness, do you think you've like discovered? And still, I think we're still always
Yeah, we're
discovering.
always discovering.
But as of today, what do you think is your gift?
Eloquence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm an orator. I speak with emotion. I can lean into something. I can lean out of it.
I love that. Eloquence. Yeah.
No, to be honest, it's...
Because you're almost like, you just came and took over my mic. Because just like, okay,
Oh.
co-hosts. Telling me for a co-host. No, but continue. Eloquence. Yeah.
Yes, so it's a gift I have recognized that I have. My ability to break down a vision, translate it appropriately for different types of audiences. That's what I've come to discover. And being appropriate, and not appropriate, relevant. Relevant at each opportunity. And I've always been.
Yeah.
I have always been eloquent.
Yeah.
There's a time I forgot to be eloquent. I would call them the dark times. But they weren't that dark because I just didn't know. I didn't recognize my gift. And so I'm a good communicator. Part of my gift is I'm also very creative. I look at something and my first instinct is let's try and solve. And it's small and big things, eh? Small and big things.
Yeah.
There are days when, because I was so busy, I didn't buy groceries and stuff, and it's chopped. And I whip up a very creative meal, and everybody's like, do that again. And I'm like,
your food is fire, though.
Yeah, you know?
Gosh.
But that comes
I like it at your house.
That's coming out of creativity. It's how I go about problem solving, which is a large part of my job. I'm a professional firefighter, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't you find that one of the things that absolutely fascinates me is how, like, I found myself in HR.
Yes.
Is like, which is, part of the intro to this is like disguised in HR. I found myself in HR because I think it's the one career where my gift felt like it translated.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of us kind of like have those gifts, like you've rightfully said, eloquence.
Yeah.
And it's always been there.
Yeah.
It showed up on those platforms. It showed up when you were doing that poem when you were a kid.
Yeah.
It showed up in how you expressed yourself. But somehow you just, you found a role where your eloquence could translate into a day-to-day job.
Yes.
That, we need to get paid and we need to like continue discovering ourselves. But that's how it starts to show up. And I mean, like, it's so great that you can articulate that.
Yeah.
I guess that's part of your eloquence. What about the things that you've had to grow around that? Because you have your gift. Your gift is there.
Yes.
Whether you believe in God or universe, spirit, whatever you call it, most of us know that there's a special gifting and purpose that we all come with. And then there's the talents that surround that, right? The things that you have to develop and build to maintain or elevate that gift.
Yes.
What was the hardest thing you had to learn? What was the hardest talent you had to learn or master that you think has helped you like elevate your gift? And what are you also still learning? What are the things that you still need to learn that kind of like keep, building that gift and elevating it and getting you on those bigger tables?
So I think one area that I need to learn, both in my professional space and outside that, is navigating corridors of power or the politics that are in there. I am a very plain person. I look at the job description, I look at the performance management dashboards, and I work towards that. I'm learning more and more that there's an undercurrent that you also have to understand, how influence and power flows. So that's an area I'm excited to explore. I'm not scared because naturally I once I put my mind to something, I become a technocrat in that. I learn it. I dedicate time to learning. I like being encountered with questions that I can't answer in that moment, because then I start processing. But in terms of some of the things that I've had to learn, is really how to format in the workspace. Because I can't say I'm flamboyant, but I could easily be all over the place. And I don't think that's deemed appropriate.
What do you mean? I'm trying to understand the all over the place.
Too many brilliant ideas all in the same space, filling up what other people feel like you've taken my space. So I don't even know how to put it appropriately, but I always feel like if there's a problem, I can solve it, and I can solve all of it. In the workspace, you just must solve according to your job description.
I see what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that an interesting challenge, because I think it's a challenge I've had as well. At this point, to be honest, I'm like, to hell with it.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like, if I'm going to come and solve your problem in your department, I'm going to pick and be like, what's that?
Yes.
You know, that looks like, you know, I think I can help there, or because it's hard for me to not.
Yes, so it's like you said, it's hard for me to.
So I'm not sure if I would call it an area of improvement, to be honest, because I think
maybe an area
more
of improvement
of us should
in
do
this
that.
season only.
Okay, maybe in this season only.
Maybe it's something I need to learn now for
because
somewhere
I think
else.
In this season, like not in this season per se, but I think in life, like you should show up in your expansiveness.
Yes,
you know,
Chipo Chedu, the talent whisperer, says that. I don't know if a lot of people say that, and I don't know if the ones at the helm of whatever you can think about, be it church or workplace or family, see it that way.
They must be strong. They shouldn't invite me. They shouldn't invite me. They shouldn't invite me to their
You're
church.
not the one they call for
smallness. No, because I think that, like, I think we should show up in all our expanse.
Yes.
But speaking of, like, this goes nicely into my next question and something we talked about before. Let's talk about loud women and brazen women. Why do you think the world still struggles with loud, brazen women? What you talked earlier about, like, you show up in your loudness or in whatever it is. I won't even call it loudness. I don't think it's loud. You know?
Yeah.
As someone who grew up being called loud, it was something that I had to, like, deal with in a way where I tried to suppress it. But then there are moments where I would realize that, like, and I think I told you this, on those moments when we would be MC extraordinaires, and then the mics would die, and I could still reach the back of the crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I've got, like, a natural amplifier, and that's like a gift. Why did you people make me feel like shit about it growing up, when, like, that's unique to me? That's something that not a lot of people can do, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, it shows up everywhere, because I think your ability to still, like, be loud shows up in the fact that, like, you're going to show up in your expanse at home, in your family, in your relationships, in church.
Yeah.
You don't know how to sit and just be like, let it just pass.
Yes.
You'll be like,
yeah.
What? You know, so, okay, well, we're just going to theorize before we go into it.
Yeah.
And before we go into how we've both dealt with it. But, like, why do you think people still struggle with loud, brazen women?
I think it's because someone sometime long ago decided to create a template for women, which was their mistake. They created a template, so anything existing outside of that is then branded some type of way, which sometimes is loud. So when I was thinking about this sort of question, I said to myself, in the boardroom you can be branded loud, but in the bar you are not, and you're still the same person. Why is that? It's because it's expected, like, get on a table, but when I use the table for influence and power and rallying for a cause, somehow I am loud. You know, no one has ever silenced a twerker. No one has ever done that, you know.
Yeah.
So why is...
I know that twerking is bad.
No, I'm not saying...
Great.
It's a
great
gift.
exercise. Love it.
Yeah, but yeah, just to contextualize
like I know I get
for,
exactly what you're saying. Like there are areas where it's like, oh, be
and
loud.
the tracker could still be me.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, and then you come and judge me in the
areas
boardroom.
it's like, hey, not too loud.
So I think it's just the template, which I think it's time up for that template. Women.
#times
Yeah,
up.
we have proven ourselves generation after generation. I don't think we're the first ones trying to do something different, and we're not the last ones. The sad thing would be if our daughters have to be, if people are going to try and feed our daughters in the same mode, given that we've broken the ceiling, we are breaking the ceiling. Someone is going to try and rebuild that for my Lindy, and how sad, they'll still have the same experience they've had with me.
I love it.
Yeah.
But now you personally, like, how have you come to terms with that, with the fact that like you are not you don't fit the mold, like you're not the meek,
Sheepish.
And I'm not going to call it humble, because I feel we misuse the word humble all the time. Humility is the ability to like reflect and self-correct. Yes. Humility is not like bending your head and looking meek. That's being, I feel like that's what's that they say in Bembe? Kuichefia. That's not humility. Yeah. So how have you accepted that that's not your portion? Like that's not, and I mean there are people that naturally fit into that, but like, have you accepted that you might not always be everybody's cup of tea, for lack of a better term?
Yes. So I've accepted that. It no longer takes me back, or it no longer shocks me when someone says I am loud. I also stopped apologizing, because if you called me, you signed up. You did sign up.
You gave me the job.
Yes, I have. And it's not just in jobs, it's in our friendship. I'm the person who tell you,
yes, you are.
Yeah, so I'll be like, this is, this is not okay.
How many times I've heard that from you?
Yeah, so I think I'm not apologetic. I don't try and rub it into your face that I'm loud. I just show up. And there's been times when it wasn't appropriate to be loud. So I'm moldable,
So you know when it's not there. Yeah. You know when it's not time. It's like not your stage. It's like not. It's not platform time.
Yes,
it's not show time.
Yes, and besides, just there are people who it is genuinely that they need a calmer, quieter, because their own ability to speak up is not yet formatted. So in those moments, in those times and those seasons, I'm quite happy to be their cheerleader and tell them that, you know what, you can go for it. They'll be okay. I know, what if they think? Let them think, but you're okay. Go for it. So I think also it allows me to be a lot more empathetic to other women who, because we've been taught that that's loud. So I know loud. And I'm just like, yeah, girl, take over. And it's been sad to notice the same levels be I don't know, I can't even find the miss word of it, but if a guy showed up as loud as I am, there's more acceptance.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
People stop and listen. Yeah. Like, oh, he must be super smart.
Yeah.
And look at the command in his voice. The command in my voice. And with that, like, it also comes with sometimes choosing that path of like brazenness and like, choosing the path of like, I'm loud. What you gonna do about it? Like, also comes with not, with, like I said, not being everybody's cup of tea. And I don't know if it's human, to want people to like you. And it can be polarizing, right? There are people who like you and there are people that just don't like, no, she's not. How have you dealt with not always being the popular person sometimes? Like, yes, there are people who are your tribe, but there are also people who aren't. Like, was there ever a point where you did things and wanted acceptance and, or you just always didn't care,
It's more on the side of didn't care, not because, like, I don't even think I was aware. I think I was so used to condemnation that you having no opinion of me was probably better than you having an opinion of me. There's a large part of my life I spent in the shadows, and it was always safer to not be the topic, right?
Yeah.
It was, to be honest, I would have chosen to not be the topic than to be the topic, because I didn't trust that people would say positive things in the moment. So I watch, what makes me sad is when I see how someone reacts when they're not chosen, and the tantrums and toys that they throw, and how they shrink. Because remember, you've just not been chosen in this moment.
It's in this moment.
It doesn't
it's
mean
not
you'll
in life.
never be chosen,
Yeah.
you know? It's not
Yeah.
in life. Maybe the people you wanted to be chosen by, are, like you said, are not your tribe. You will never conform with their standards. So in this moment, you're trying to go for something that you actually don't need. So maybe it's also helped that my tribe has always been largely very small. It's been my sisters. Oh, I love those girls. My brother. My friendship circles run in and within the family. I have few people. You're my best friend, soulmate. I think there's no one else I can say the same things about, just because of the depth of our relationship, how you call me out on my bullshit, often how you've encouraged me to
How you
walk
call
the
me
journey.
out. Accountability partner.
Accountability partner. So I've always had a place.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And yeah, I could talk about, this is one of my favorite topics, but we need to move.
Yes.
So right now, like, maybe not right now, but what are the things that make you like light up, that just make you smile like that, and give you, I know it's the last time something gave you like goosebumps.
Okay. My kids.
Oh.
I have two very amazing kids. And when I see how different their life is right now compared to mine, and how boldly they pronounce their dreams, how they defend their space, how they are just like, no, mom, you want that, that's not what I want. And how they go for what they want. My daughter, who's, I've already sort of recognized her path, but she keeps changing what that looks like. So now it's music, and it's ministry music, and it's, and I'm like, you can be all of that. You can be all of that. And just seeing that they believe that this is possible. They're not dealing with, can my parents afford a dream like this? So being able to make that possible for them, and the time I get to spend with them, it was like, and they're very expressive, and they are free.
You are expressive. Are you surprised? Are you surprised your kids are expressive?
Yeah. So that makes me light up. And when I get an opportunity to see someone grow, someone who I have had conversations with on what should I do, how can I do this, and I see them choosing themselves. Oh, I love it when I see people choosing themselves.
I love that. Yeah, me too. That's one of my favorite things.
That lights me up.
Yeah, seeing someone grow.
Yes.
It's so funny that that gives me absolute joy.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, when was the last time you felt like goosebumps about something? Not scary ones. That would be another podcast. Those goosebumps that are just like, whew.
Not so long ago. I had a meeting with my boss. I nailed it. And the reason why I feel so positive about it, because it was my first check-in in my new role. And you obviously know me, I had overpackaged. And
of course, you had the presentation with... Yeah.
So in like...
You had practiced.
I did. I had prepared, and we got in, and it's 5 minutes in, and I felt at home. And I was just like...
And it felt good.
I was always meant to be here. This moment was always coming. And in that moment, I was like, thank you, God. And literally, it was goosebumps, probably maybe because the temperature was quite low. But also, it was a humbling moment.
Yeah. Speaking of like humbling moments, or just like you mentioned, we talked about your son earlier, and you choosing, I love how you just light up, and like your son, and you just light up. And you choosing him at
Yes.
18.
Yes.
And I know now he's going off to university. And the day that, you know, like he got accepted into university and we know he's going, I remember saying, "Go from Chifubu."
Yeah.
And tell me about that moment. Like the moment of, like, how do you reconcile those two things? How do you reconcile without crying?
I came with makeup. Let's not do this.
How do you reconcile that moment of choosing him to now seeing him, grown man, towering over us,
Yes.
you know, going off to university?
So it made me remember the experience of choosing him. And how did I choose him? Because remember, I was 18. They're clueless. In that moment, it was realizing that God has trusted me with a human being. A whole human being.
The whole
Yes.
human.
He chose me because I knew I was a fool. I knew I was undeserving. I knew I was unworthy of such a huge responsibility. But the God of the universe, the one who knows everything, Alpha and Omega, chose me. I'm like, okay, then this is a responsibility I have to take. So this moment, like I said, Chipo, this moment was always going to come. How I got here, the steps, the tears, the victories, the heartbreaks, all of those things led to this moment. And I'm very proud. I'm very proud of who I am as a mom. I'm very proud of my son. Solid boy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know if boy applies anymore. But focused. I've heard stories that people have had with their children that made me cringe.
Yeah.
Our son has never given us that sort of walk.
Yeah.
He's someone you can have a conversation with. He would give you his perspective. Most of the time, his perspective is valid, and he's given us an opportunity. We trust him.
He's a good person.
Yes, he's a good.
Yeah.
He's a good person.
Yeah.
So even when Phil and I are not sure, we're like, we will know.
Yeah.
You know, when like if he says, "Oh, I'm going out." I remember the first time he said, "Oh, I'm going out, I'll be back at 20. I was like huffing and puffing inside. Then I said, this boy has never given me a reason to doubt this.
Yeah.
So let him go. And he went.
Yeah.
And he was like 10 minutes late. By the time I checked my phone, there were messages. Sorry, mom, the Ulendo took too long to come and stuff like that. I was like, that's my son.
Yeah.
So it's been God.
Yeah.
It's been God. And from then, now, and the future, it's still going to be God.
Yeah. This leads me to the next question. I don't even know if it's a question or just a statement. I know how much like your faith and how like what a key role God plays in your life. I think one of the big areas, I don't know if I've told you this, like I've always been quite spiritual, but one of the big ways you've impacted me is like just like your influence on my spirituality has been so positive, because you're just like your faith is so unshakable that being around you can't help but have like unshakable faith. And you know, everything we've done, like being intentional, you know, we pray for each other, we like, you know, but how, I don't even know how to ask this question because I know spirituality plays such a big role in your life. But I guess what I'm saying is that when it comes to your success today, in as a person, because I think one of the things that is really evident with you is that not only have you had career success, is that just like as a person you've had success where you come from what a lot of people call a bad situation to being here right now and sharing your story. So when did the spiritual journey like kick in, and when did it just become real? Like right now it's in your DNA. I know you don't do anything without like spiritual check, you know. When did it kick in and when did it just become a solid part of you?
Okay, so I think it's been a solid part of my life since 2017. I gave my life to Jesus when I was in grade 6. But between then, grade 6 is 1996, the year before, I think a few months before my dad died. And 2017, Yeah, it's another podcast. It's a series.
It's another one.
But it was, I think it was a moment that led me to it was a breaking down of, I can't do this anymore. I can't do anything on my own. And the moments in which I had to surrender, it's for another day, but the surrender and getting off that prayer mat, having left everything there, and who I arose as from that prayer mat really has changed my life. You said spirituality is a large part of my life. It's not a large part of my life. It's my whole life. My faith is all I have. At the end of the day, it's all I have. And you said unshakable faith. My faith has been shaken. I've had fights with God where I asked him to say, why must I believe in you? When you let this thing happen, I talk to you every morning. How was it that I didn't see? And coming to realize that even in the moments when I thought God was not seeing or he was not letting me in on it, he was working a measure of healing so that when the revelation came, it sat on a healed heart. And it's coming to a place that for me, God is not just Abba Father sitting somewhere up there. He's
With
my
a white
G.
with a white beard.
No.
Morgan Freeman.
No, he's not. You know, he's my dad. He's my friend. I've asked him for wisdom and I've asked him for intelligence. I've just been like, God, if you don't help me figure out this marketing campaign, you are going to be embarrassed. And I can live with it, but I don't know, because in this place I've said, I am your child, so daddy, you are at risk. There's also been moments where he's just shown me that I've always had you. Ndelela, I've always had you. The time you didn't believe, I kept your vision alive. I didn't let it die. So that at the appropriate time you could pick it. But every step you've taken, the ones that felt like they were backwards, the ones that were to the side, the moments of stillness where it felt like there was no growth, all of that, I was working something in you. And it's not just for you. It's just not for you so that you can consume and be like, oh, I made it. No. There's someone else who my strength, my resilience has to work out something for. So I love God.
I know.
I love him.
I know, it's so infectious. Even when you talk about it, I also just feel like, yes. Yeah, and I love that. Like, it's not a big part of your life. It is your life.
That's my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's hard to follow. You know, it's hard to follow a question after that. But like, what are you yet to do, friend? Like, what remains undone? And also, like, this thing you and me do, where we climb, we reach the next mountain, we're like, oh, what's next? You climb, we reach the next mountain. You know, I've always wanted to do a podcast. We climb, we don't know. Like, when do we rest? You know, I feel like as much as, like, a big part of our conversation is also just, like, trying to find time. Yes. Just like today, we're trying to schedule our spa date, and our calendars, we're not calendaring, like, you know. But, like, what are you yet to do? And when will we rest? Maybe you can tell me when we'll rest.
So I thought long and hard, because this is a question I think you did me a great service by asking me earlier on. And my truth, Chipo, is that I have no script for what I'm yet to do, but more for who I'm supposed to be. I have realized that...
Come through with a word.
I have realized that everything I have done is because of who I was in that moment, good or bad. So now I want to be a project of who to be. And so I think everything else...
You were always reactive in the past, so now you want to be intentional.
I've always been intentional. I just want to make sure that I am being more than doing, because even when I think about my future roles when it comes to, like, my career, it will be more about enabling people to be great. It won't be the things I need to do. It's the environment I need to create. And to create an environment, you have to be that sort of person, that sort of leader. So how do I want to be? I want to be more rested. I want to be more present.
So, before you continue, like, this is why we're friends. When you say stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, this is why this is my friend. Anyway, you want to be more rested?
Rested.
I want to be more rested.
I want to be more rested. I want to be more impactful.
Yeah.
I want to be more intention. I don't want anyone to be left behind. I want, when my eulogy is read out, I had influence beyond my family and my job. And I always want to continue being brave, because I think there's decisions that will need to be made in future that is cut out for the brave. Everything else can be left to those who've chosen something else. But if there's any hard, brave decisions, I want to be able to make those.
I love that. I think that's a new perspective on who you want to be. I think that's some reflecting for me as well, because I kind of know it at a high level, but I also sometimes always focus on the what's, like, I still want to do that, and I still want to do this, and those tend to be what's. I think it's some good homework for me to think about the who, right? The who, no matter whether it's like a podcast or if it's like, a job, or if it's like another entrepreneurial venture, like I should think about the what, the who and not always the what. That's pretty good. And when you look at the, this, it's my personal belief. First of all, I don't have any, you and me are, we're conditioned to think in data points.
Yep.
I don't have any real data for this, but I think I just know that your gift makes a way for you. Like your gift makes even like hard things bearable, even in the most not so obvious situations, but for you it's probably that ability to communicate and to be eloquent that has made life bearable in the hard times, but also in the good times has created like big opportunities or found you where you are today. So when you look back, like when you take just a look back to, even before the parents died, do you feel like the dots connect? Do you feel like it's all connected? Do you feel like everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen? Or do you have a different kind of like thought process about that?
I'd say it makes sense now. There's, in those moments of searching and fighting with God, like, God, why did you take both my parents? A thought that stuck, and it's my thought. I felt like God told me, do you think your parents would have, how do you think your mom and dad would have gone through this that happened to you? Part of which was your choice. How would they have gone through that? And it's brought me to a place where I've come to continue to trust God to say, all the steps take to where His purpose for my life has been.
Yeah.
You said earlier that I had said I will have a TV show and I'll invite you as my guest and we'll have deep conversations and stuff like that. In that moment, I was imagining I would be Oprah, you would be my girl.
Yeah.
But I am your girl. You're my Oprah. You know what I mean?
That's the highest compliment ever.
You know what I mean?
Ever.
But so this was always going to happen.
Yeah.
Who was interviewing and who was the interviewee was a detail. But the opportunity for each of us to share, to give perspective to how the journey to now has been, because I think I had always struggled with getting who to look up to because their journey felt too far from mine.
That is so true.
Yeah. And now I feel like
the data point.
We are not data points. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to look up to you. You had what I think is everything that I didn't. So how am I supposed to admire your journey now when I have too many tears for the moments in my life, So I believe that even now is speaking into that. We did not know how now was going to be, but the purpose of now was still preserved in there and formatted story in the things that we didn't know. So the humble part of me just leaves everything and says, He will figure it out. The Bible says, in my own time, I will make it happen.
Yeah.
He makes it happen. How He makes it happen is the mystery of His wisdom. How He provides for things like this is Him being God, But He will make it happen. I've come to trust that when He says, I would trade your ashes for beauty.
So all those tears.
All those tears, there had to be some tears. How else would I show up empathetic? How else can I believe that people can go through things and you don't write them off based on what they're going through today because their story is just starting? It took all of that. So yes, Chipo, the dots connect.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, I'm just holding in some emotions, but yeah, wow, like I could talk to you all day, of course.
We
I
do.
know, and I say that about all my guests because like everyone knows how much I love conversations, and I can
Yes.
talk about anything and everything with such like deepness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've really enjoyed asking you these questions, and like it's always we talk, but like I'm finding that whenever I talk to people I think I know on this podcast, I'm just getting like another layer. So it's also such a huge blessing for me. But before we close, like the interviewer that I am, I can't help but like pass the mic to you. Cassie, do you have any questions for me?
Wow. I never thought about that.
Because they're supposed to be random. I feel like if you prepared, you'd have prepared too much.
I
Knowing
would
you,
have.
you'd have removed your laptop, you'd have presented it in PowerPoint. So it was supposed to be catch you a bit off guard.
Well, not to catch you off guard, but what do you want this thing to do? You've invested a lot of time and energy in this.
The podcast, you mean?
The podcast. Why are you doing it?
So two answers. One of them is I don't know. And the reason one of them is I don't know is because it's just been there. I've just wanted to do this. Did it look like a podcast when I was young? No. It probably looked like funny because I used to watch the Oprah Winfrey Show every day. We used to record it on VHS, those for my mom, because like Oprah was a big part of my childhood, our lives. But like I always wanted to do that. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, it wasn't fitting, it wasn't going with the HR career, it wasn't like, it just wasn't. And then came like podcasting, then came YouTube, then came these things that kind of like start to make it easier. And then even then I continued to procrastinate.
Yeah.
It was just there. So that's one of the things that I don't know. It was just there. And then the second thing is the fact that like I think platforms are powerful because when you and I have conversations, there's always moments. I always repeat those conversations to other people. I always find myself repeating nuggets and conversations to people, and I'm like, I can't reach everyone. Like I can't, you know how much time I spend with people because I'm very social. I'm always out like having dinners with people or lunches. You know, I've got like a number of people I can accept now that I mentor, but it's hard to. It's becoming harder and harder for me. All the calls I get, everybody who's asking me for help. I send voice notes, a minimum of 5 voice notes every day to people asking me for help on navigating their career, on like an interview or this or that. And this feels like a great place to just like reach out to all people at the same time.
Oh, wow.
But also, I think there's a lot to be said about gifts and talents. I think it's one of the underestimated things. The people that have pursued the stuff that they're good at have done well, and not some well economically, but I think well in terms of like fulfillment, in terms of like a happier, more meaningful life, and not just money. The people that I find have a certain like calmness and contentment and like like that kind, they radiate happiness, are the people that are doing what they like.
Yes.
So I think this will also be a great platform to talk to people like you, and a girl in Chifubu is watching and being like, a girl from Chifubu just like me, and who knows what path she might take, but the fact that she got to hear your story is pretty dope. So yeah, those are the 2 answers that I'm even answering for myself right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's my best friend, people. Mine.
So you there's no way you can only have one question. I know, like we normally like people to ask like a minimum of 3 when we're in interviews.
Okay.
You know, how much does this job pay? It pays in friendship.
That's what I'm working away from.
I'm like, it pays in friendship.
Okay. You asked me the question, when do we rest?
Yeah.
What will our time to say, okay, Chipo, Cassie, let's go and rest? What will it look like then?
I think we just need to rest now. Like, I don't, you know, we both read Ariana Huffington's Thrive.
Yes.
And that book taught me so much about rest. I started resting more after I read it, but I think I can do better.
Thrive, eh?
I think we need to learn how to rest now.
Yes.
Yeah. Whether it's at the end of every day, you know, how we switch off at the end of every day, how we are intentional about spending time with friends and family, how we vacation, how we, I think the resting needs to start now. Because to be honest, I don't see it yet, but I don't see a time where I'll like sit down and not do anything. I think I'll always be that busy changes, old lady. So I think the resting needs to be incorporated now. I think we should go back and read Thrive.
Yes.
Yeah. That should be our homework
this time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess now just thinking about it, my third question would be, I know your birthday is coming up. Obviously, I wouldn't forget soon. And you've always come at me with a word for your birthday. Have you already done that? Do you know what the tone for your new season, like we always like to say?
So I have two. And I don't know how related they are. And you know, I always create a hashtag.
Yeah.
Because I'm extra. So I have two words. One of them is unapologetic. So hashtag unapologetic Chedu. And the reason I want to be, I think I've always been unapologetic, but I think I've been unapologetic in dosages.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, because of whatever reason, I don't know. So at this point, it's just like, are we doing the podcast? We are doing it. What else are we doing this year? All the things we wanted to start doing, we're doing. So being more unapologetic and like, you know, when the people ask you those questions, and I've had these questions my whole life, like, what are you doing now? You left which job? But that was a really good job. What are you doing this time? You're doing what? You're at now Tamba podcast. So like I've become more deaf to that. Like I'm now just like, but even being more like just silencing those voices that are like, sometimes they're not even there. You know, that silent gallery. Yes. Just telling that gallery to completely shut up and just being unapologetic. So hashtag unapologetic Chedu. Then the next word is, we talked about in the car ride over here, was surrender.
Yeah.
So surrender for me, you know, I like to see, I like control. I have a vision and then I want to execute it according to that. But this is kind of the first time, you know, this podcast and a few other things in my life, and I think you know a few of those, the first time I'm surrendering to something that doesn't feel familiar. You know, like, because I know when it comes to like my career, I've been able to see, oh, this job now takes me here, or this move takes me here. But this, I don't know where this is going. You know, I might just get 3 views on YouTube. You know, like I have no idea, right? But like being able to surrender to that and to trust that like whatever is coming next is for me, is hard. As someone who likes to has the vision board and likes control, it's very hard to not know what some of these things I'm doing would turn out to be. So surrendering. So it's a big year. 36 is going to be a big year for. But 3 is my favorite number.
So multiples.
So I feel like, multiples of 3, it's 3ing. I was born on the 3rd of March. Like the 3s are 3ing. So let's see what the 3s can 3.
Okay. I'm here for all
bars,
of it.
Bars. Let's see what the 3s can 3. Put that on a verse. Let's see what that turns out to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we done here?
Yes.
We'll just go and continue.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay, so thank you for everybody who tuned in to this amazing conversation with Cassie. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and also subscribe to this channel. See you on the next episode of The Talent Whisperer. Cheers.